This is definitely the most exaggerated isekai anime ever. A blinding flash of white light, and an ugly gorilla actually turned into a beautiful woman who immediately clung to Seiichi's legs, loudly proclaiming her desire to be Seiichi's wife. Despite Seiichi's now charming appearance before being transported, he was a complete loser, overweight and suffering from unbearable body odor, leading a miserable life of isolation and bullying at school. On this day, Seiichi was going through his usual routine of being bullied, when suddenly, a message came over the school's PA system announcing that the god would invite everyone to participate in a game. The broadcast then ordered all classmates to return to their seats, except for Seiichi, who was still lying on the ground. They were to become heroes, and the god was going to transport them all to another world. Thankfully, the god was quite merciful. They could choose their own attributes and skills, and even form teams. But given Seiichi's popularity in class, it was expectedly hard for him to find a team. Indeed, after 10 minutes, classmates were already forming teams without him. One boy mocked Seiichi for all his attributes being at the lowest level of 1, and his luck was atrociously bad. This greatly upset Seiichi. Then the teleportation began. In an instant, all his classmates disappeared, leaving only Seiichi behind, isolated. Eventually, even the god couldn't stand it anymore and gave him a special privilege before teleporting him to the isekai as well. But unlike his classmates who were transported to a plaza, Seiichi found himself in the wilderness. 5 days passed, and Seiichi lived a primitive life on the verge of starvation. Just as he was about to catch a plump bug that passed by, he was interrupted by a noise. When he looked up, he saw a large fruit in front of him. Unable to resist, he devoured the evolutionary fruit. Though it tasted awful, it was filling. After eating, a voice inside him announced the start of an evolution. Seiichi, noticing no changes in his body, didn't pay much attention and went off to find more food. Unwittingly, he encountered monkeys and the same type of evolutionary fruit he had just eaten. Upon examination, the monkeys were all level 120, while Seiichi was only level 1. Just as Seiichi was about to give up, the monkeys suddenly left. Was this luck? Seiichi quickly stole the evolutionary fruits and even the high-level recovery water from the ground. Later, when Seiichi found more food to satiate his hunger, he even ate mushrooms marked with 3 question marks, which turned out to be highly poisonous. Thinking he might as well die full, Seiichi took out the last 2 evolutionary fruits. Just as he ate them, the poison was neutralized, and he learned a skill of being immune to all poisons. Regretting not saving a fruit for emergencies, he was cheered by the sound of the skill upgrading. Before his happiness lasted long, a monkey hit him so hard that he bled profusely. Without hesitation, Seiichi grabbed the recovery water and drank furiously, his body healing instantly. But the level 120 monkey was relentless, beating Seiichi, who was only level 1. Just when Seiichi thought he was going to be eaten, his body odor knocked the monkey unconscious, who then dropped some valuable items. Seiichi found he could learn skills from the skill cards he touched, and he even found a book on monkey abilities that he could surprisingly understand. Was this the god's cheat given to him? Before he could figure it out, an evolutionary voice sounded within him, and suddenly, Seiichi's stomach hurt so much he couldn't stand it, and he collapsed. When he woke up again, his body had undergone a dramatic transformation, from a chubby guy to a handsome man, and all his attributes had increased by 1,000. Happiness came so unexpectedly. Yet this evolution would happen 10 times in total, meaning Seiichi had to endure this pain 9 more times. What Seiichi found hardest to accept was that his level was still only 1. Instantly, Seiichi lost his desire to play. 5 months later, Seiichi easily defeated a level 300+ wolf beast, once again enjoying the comfort of his evolved body. Although his surface level showed little change, all his other attributes had improved. He was just 1 evolution away from completion. After collecting his spoils of victory, he found himself surrounded by a group of monkeys. Suddenly, a pink gorilla fell from the sky. Seiichi was terrified by its huge size. The gorilla didn't waste words and challenged Seiichi to a duel, not allowing the other monkeys to interfere. Seiichi wanted to refuse, but the gorilla didn't give him the chance to do so. Seeing its level was over 700, Seiichi had no choice but to run. Before he could react, the gorilla punched, shattering the ground where Shoichi had just been standing. Seeing Shoichi dodge its attack, the gorilla blushed shyly. Shoichi saw the gorilla eyeing his body and could no longer bear it. He responded with a flying kick, but the gorilla easily dodged it and countered with a heavy punch, sending Shoichi flying hundreds of miles away. When the gorilla saw Shoichi was still alive, it fell in love with him instantly, introducing itself as Saria. Shoichi couldn't stand it. A huge gorilla bearing the name of a beautiful girl was too much. He swung his claws in a slashing attack, but still couldn't touch the gorilla's body. The gorilla leaped into the air and dove towards Shoichi with the speed of its fall. After a tremor, Shoichi, who had dodged, thought the gorilla had crushed him to death, but surprisingly he was unharmed. Shoichi quickly switched to a dagger, and with a lift of his left hand, a water column fell from the sky. Unexpectedly, it missed the target and hit himself instead. Taking advantage of this, the gorilla punched Shoichi, causing him to spit blood. At that moment, he remembered his undefeated secret weapon, his body odor. He abandoned all defenses, relaxed, and focused on emitting his scent. As the fist neared his handsome face, Shoichi thought he was doomed, but a reversal happened. The gorilla completely fell in love with the scent of Shoichi's body. Without a second word, it picked him up to take him back to its lair. After capturing Shoichi and taking him back to its tree hole, the gorilla took great care of him, cooking meals and even presenting handmade clothes. Shoichi was almost moved, a perfect wife and mother indeed. However, Shoichi remained clear-headed, knowing well the difference between humans and monsters. Outwardly, he accepted the gorilla's kindness, but inwardly, he was plotting his escape. The gorilla, even when going out hunting, insisted on bringing Shoichi along. Shoichi planned to sneak away when it wasn't looking, but turned around only to encounter a spider monster. Hearing Shoichi scream, the gorilla rushed to his side and punched the spider monster away, continuously showing concern for Shoichi. Shoichi felt guilty, always thinking about escaping while the other genuinely cared for him. Back in the tree hole, the gorilla suddenly asked about the evolution fruit. Shoichi accidentally spat water in its face, thinking of the evolution fruit he had previously stolen. Shoichi quickly shook his head, denying any knowledge. The gorilla mentioned it had already eaten 10 fruits, and eating an 11th would be fatal. It had prepared another 10 for its future husband, but they were stolen. It vowed to pulverize the thief into dust. Shoichi was instantly unsettled, embracing the idea that admitting a mistake is still a mark of a good child. He confessed to the gorilla that he was the thief. Surprisingly, the gorilla wasn't angry, leaving Shoichi in disbelief. The gorilla said it was fate. The fruit of evolution was meant for its future husband, but now it was eaten by Shoichi, and it was about to marry him. But Shoichi immediately interrupted and refused. Knowing it couldn't rush things, the gorilla decided to go hunting. When Shoichi heard it was going out, he didn't hesitate and ran away, just as he breathed the free air. And hadn't gone far, the gorilla chased after him, seeming to warn Shoichi of danger ahead, quickly catching up. But Shoichi didn't give it a chance. He cheated by using teleportation to shake the gorilla off far away. Gasping, Shoichi reached a cave, which looked somewhat eerie. Driven by the gorilla's pursuit, he had no choice but to run into the cave. Then he pushed open a door inside, only to find a talking skeleton. Shoichi, unsure of the situation, decided to first assess its level. Surprised to find the skeleton was level 1500, twice as high as the gorilla. As the first human to enter the cave, he didn't plan to hold back. Thrusting his sword into its chest, Shoichi had already closed his eyes to accept death. But unexpectedly, the gorilla took the sword strike for him. Seeing the gorilla fall, Shoichi finally shouted its name. The gorilla was happy to hear it. The Skeleton King's blow was fatal. It couldn't last much longer. It sacrificed itself for Shoichi because it loved his kindness and had enjoyed their time together. Moved, Shoichi's tears flowed. The gorilla said before dying, it wanted to see Shoichi's smile. Shoichi fulfilled its request. The Skeleton King mocked the gorilla's love for Shoichi as boring. Hearing this, Shoichi instantly became furious. Regardless of the opponent's level, he vowed to avenge Saria. Shoichi pulled out all his equipment and used all the skills he had learned these days. Could a level 1 Shoichi really defeat a level 1500 Skeleton King? Under Seiichi's final assault, the Skeleton King also found relief. Transforming into a normal human, with his beloved woman by his side, it turned out the Skeleton King was also a pitiful person. Once a strong warrior, he fought against dark nobles, gaining people's worship and recognition. Yet he was plotted against by a jealous king and betrayed by his wife. Only a maid stayed by his side. After she was killed, he retreated into the cave, guarding his beloved's remains, until Seiichi defeated him, allowing him to find release. Seiichi saw a white light emanating from the gorilla. Thinking it too would vanish, he decided to accept its declaration of love before it disappeared, giving it a final kiss. Unexpectedly, this kiss allowed the gorilla to evolve completely. The light dispersed, and the gorilla evolved into a beautiful girl. Seiichi's nose bled profusely. What was previously gratitude now turned into deep love. Who wouldn't love such a beautiful wife? With a beautiful wife now secured, next was to collect the spoils. Equipment burst forth from the Skeleton King, not a few, with various skills that even allowed Seiichi to evolve one last time. After evolving, Seiichi instantly turned into a handsome man. Even Saria blushed seeing him, saying she would follow Seiichi from now on. Seiichi finally felt relieved. Just as they were preparing to leave, a little goat in leather shoes appeared out of nowhere. He said he was the labyrinth manager. The little goat's purpose was to deliver the reward for clearing the level. With a snap of his fingers, a bag of seeds for the fruit of evolution appeared in Seiichi's hand and gave the two a set of travel clothes. Afterward, they were teleported out of the cave, arriving outside in the forest. After coming out of the instance, Seiichi planned to take Saria to the newbie village, since one was a transmigrator and the other an evolved gorilla turned beautiful girl. Currently without official identities, they needed to go to the town guild to register. On the road, they encountered a slime. Seiichi, upon assessing it, discovered that even the lowest of slimes on the food chain were level 88. Yet Seiichi himself was only level 1. When the slime attacked, Seiichi instantly felt challenged. He pulled out 2 weapons, intending to show off, but unexpectedly defeated the slime in one move. Seiichi was suddenly unsettled. Could he actually be an invincible monster? Saria, his primary consort, with keen eyes, noticed the equipment that burst out of the slime. Seiichi picked up the loot, which included a pair of boots and 2 skill cards. Seiichi handed the boots to Saria, and the skill cards were automatically absorbed. After leveling up, Seiichi's helmet transformed into a stylish cloak. A letter also dropped, informing Seiichi that with his level up, his equipment had also upgraded. The cloak was capable of hiding Seiichi's real power. After delivering its message, the letter self-destructed. Seiichi was indignant, but had no recourse against the administrator. He could only proceed to the novice village with Saria. Upon arrival, they successfully entered the town after their identities were verified by the Orb of Truth. The town guard, kindly warning Seiichi not to register in this city, did not deter him. Seiichi, curious, still went to the Adventurers Guild. However, upon witnessing the scenes inside the guild, he regretted his decision, but it was too late. The guild president suddenly appeared behind them, enthusiastically introduced himself, and pushed both Seiichi and Saria into joining the guild. With new members, Miss Xiao, the receptionist, quickly turned into a cute front desk lady, which Saria found adorable. The receptionist proficiently briefed them about the guild, guessing that Seiichi must be looking for information. Indeed, Seiichi needed to know where his classmates were. As Seiichi hesitated, Saria felt they should join the guild as the people there seemed good. Just as they completed their registration, a member of the Shamat group barged in, learning that Seiichi was a new member and prepared a welcome ceremony for him. Without resisting, Seiichi followed them outside. When they lifted his cloak, they were momentarily charmed by his good looks. Seiichi sensed trouble, but they were ready, even comforting him that it would only hurt at the beginning. Seiichi, no longer calm, broke free and led them on a chase. Fortunately, with his astonishing agility and speed, he managed to escape them. Back at the guild, Seiichi angrily criticized the guild, but the president said it was all in good spirit and did not intervene. The front desk lady then mentioned that all new members must undergo a test to understand their abilities and determine their rank for task assignments. The examiner had to be at least B level, and in the guild there was only one, Altria, an A-level adventurer. Upon seeing Altria's beauty, Shoichi couldn't hide his lecherous expression, which made Saria jealous. Initially, Altria did not want to be an examiner, but after seeing Shoichi's nonchalant demeanor, she got angry and moved him in front to admonish him. Fortunately, after some mediation by the president, Altria reluctantly accepted the task. She then took Shoichi and Saria to complete 3 menial tasks. On the way, Shoichi complimented Altria on her lovely smile, causing her to blush with embarrassment. Quickly, they arrived at the location of their first task, which was to take care of some children. Upon hearing this, Saria knew she was up to the task, and the children liked her very much. Then, Altria took Shoichi to accomplish the second task, which involved dismantling an abandoned ruin. Before Altria could finish explaining, Shoichi walked towards the center of the ruin, and as soon as he touched it, it instantly collapsed, burying Shoichi alive. Altria immediately panicked, crying and blaming herself while digging through the rubble, saying she should have known better. She considered herself a calamity magnet, believing that anyone who gets close to her would end up facing misfortune, just like how a piece of wood inexplicably fell on a child they had kindly helped on their way there. This was also the reason she initially did not want to accept this commission. She cried with regret, but then Shoichi emerged from the rubble without a scratch. Altria was surprised, but she scolded Shoichi, telling him not to act recklessly in the future, as it could endanger the rest of the team in a real monster-fighting scenario. Seeing Altria's concern, Shoichi was touched and watched her, but Altria, blushing, quickly ran off to complete the third task. When Shoichi heard that the task was to walk a dog, he confidently said it would be easy, but he was bewildered when he actually went to do it, for it was not a dog but clearly a wolf, and it was the wolf walking him, not the other way around. Altria watched amusedly from the side. The lady owner noticed Altria's change of mood and teased her, asking if it was because of Shoichi that she seemed different. Although Altria did not admit it, her actions afterward were very honest. After completing 3 miscellaneous tasks, they returned to the guild, where the guildmaster gave them a reward. Altria suggested to Shoichi that if he had not yet found a place to stay, he could come to live with her. The front desk lady and the guild master were shocked by Altria's gesture. Shoichi and Saria were very willing after completing the 3 tasks, and Shoichi had already formed 2 harems, while his classmates were still swinging wooden swords in the castle, a true no comparison, no harm scenario. Meanwhile, the next assessment was an outdoor adventure task. As the examiner, Altria issued a task to collect 10 common herbs. Shoichi said, "This sounds quite simple." Before Altria could finish speaking, he rushed out to find the herbs, followed closely by Saria. But instead of finding common herbs, Shoichi found rare magic mushrooms and rare antidote herbs. He wanted to ask someone where to find the common herbs, but accidentally stumbled upon a few demons discussing some grand plan. The 3 demons thought Shoichi was just an ordinary human and tried to kill him to keep their secret. Shoichi, realizing something was wrong, tried to leave, but the demon leader was unhappy and summoned his big buddy, who came swinging a huge club. They thought they had crushed Shoichi into a pulp, but with one hand, Shoichi blocked the club and casually crushed it. Undeterred, Shoichi still wanted to ask where he could find the herbs, but they were already terrified by Shoichi and quickly fled. Shoichi was quite helpless. Soon it was time for the assessment, and Saria, following the requirements, successfully brought back 10 common herbs. Shoichi, however, had found rare magic mushrooms and rare antidote herbs, with only 5 common herbs found just under his feet at Altria's hint. Still 5 short. What to do? Shoichi looked pitifully at Altria, who reluctantly pulled out 5 herbs to help Shoichi cheat, completing the task of collecting herbs. Next was the task to defeat 10 slimes. Shoichi and Saria said no problem, as both were not ordinary people and had retained their strength. Seeing their confidence, Altria was reassured, knowing that as an A-class adventurer, she could protect them in the worst-case scenario. At that moment, 3 slimes suddenly appeared. Shoichi quickly raised his great sword and swung at them, but unexpectedly, the slimes vanished. Altria stepped forward to investigate and found a teleportation circle. Prioritizing safety, Altria thought it best to halt the examination and return to the guild first. However, she accidentally stepped on the teleportation circle and worried for his second wife. Seiichi followed and was also teleported. The three of them were transported to the lair of a black dragon, a dungeon underground. Altria handed Seiichi a compass stone, telling him it could guide the way if they were separated. Moreover, the stone would emit a red light if a teammate was in mortal danger, serving also as a distress signal. After explaining the stone's function, Altria gave the command to move out. Unexpectedly, she immediately stepped on a trap in the maze, and all three were stunned. Altria's knack for finding trouble was unmatched. A wall then separated the three of them. Seiichi tried to punch through the wall, but the wall remained undamaged, and instead, his fist swelled up like a sandbag. Using the compass stone to find direction, they had just separated from Altria, who was right behind the wall. The two of them, lacking in wit, thought to break the wall with the compass stone. A ridiculous idea. How could a small stone move a wall? With their brains failing them, they could only search for another way around the wall. They ended up walking into several dead ends in the maze. Just as Seiichi was about to give up, Saria found something good. They successfully avoided all dangers and entered a room with a treasure chest. Seiichi glanced at it briefly, sensed something odd, and turned to leave. But the treasure chest, as if alive, insisted that Seiichi open it. It lunged at Seiichi, who casually cast a binding spell and killed it, leveling up in the process. The treasure chest monster fell and turned into a box, revealing a tome, an unfortunate ring, and 2 skill cards. The unfortunate ring, a legendary item, would have the wearer's luck. Just as Seiichi was complaining about the useless ring, the compass stone suddenly emitted red light, signaling that Altria was in danger. The two panicked, not knowing what to do, and could only return the way they came, back to the wall that separated them. But the result was the same. The wall remained immovable. Meanwhile, Altria, who had been fighting minor monsters and was injured, had accidentally wandered into the black dragon's lair. The black dragon, seeing food delivered to its doorstep, was thrilled and began to thrash Altria. Even though Altria activated a powerful emergency skill, she was still overpowered by the dragon, and the fight was quickly lost. The unharmed black dragon lost interest, and just as it was about to finish Altria with a breath attack, Seiichi suddenly appeared, blocking the dragon's breath with his cloak. It must be said, this heroic rescue was impressively arranged. After multiple failed attempts, Seiichi, in a rage, threw a punch of anger and finally broke through the maze's wall. He then knocked the black dragon unconscious, rescuing Altria at a critical moment. Just as he was treating Altria, the black dragon woke up. Seiichi pulled out his equipment and talked tough, but the dragon, not a vegetarian, launched a breath attack at Seiichi first. Seiichi dodged the attack, but then the dragon's claw sent him flying through the air, smashing him against the wall. Injured and falling, Seiichi then assessed the black dragon's level, surprised to find it was level 5000. Just as Seiichi realized it was going to be a tough fight, the black dragon was already preparing a massive attack. Seeing the huge fireball, Seiichi panicked. Luckily, Saria reminded Seiichi to use the same move he had used against her before. It was then that Seiichi regained his composure, unleashing his flood skill. A massive water column fell from the sky, directly extinguishing the black dragon beast's giant fireball. Seeing its powerful attack dispersed, the black dragon beast became thoroughly enraged and attacked Seiichi again. Watching Seiichi dodge with ease, the beast's eyes turned red and immobilized Seiichi on the spot. Thinking it was the final move, unexpectedly, Seiichi hacked the game again, breaking the suppression, and charged through the black dragon beast's red-eyed pressure. The black dragon beast was somewhat surprised, but it was already too late. Seiichi raised his sword, charged at the black dragon beast, and transformed it into a treasure chest upon defeating it. Seiichi's level was raised once again, feeling once more how lonely it is to be invincible. At that moment, Saria rushed over. Though they had defeated the black dragon beast, they had yet to find an exit. Saria was somewhat flustered, but Seiichi regained his intelligence, suggesting that they check the loot, which might contain information about the exit. Instantly, Seiichi collected several high-grade materials from the body of the black dragon beast, including a black dragon jewel. Eating it would enhance his own abilities and magical power. Without a second thought, Seiichi swallowed it whole, surprised by the pleasant taste, and even learned a spatial skill. Now he had a way to return. Among the items in the chest was an overlord's robe that could defend against ordinary weapons, and another was a biography book of the black dragon beast from before its death, detailing the dragon's experiences. It was originally a black dragon god that protected humans, but due to human greed, wanting to use its high-grade materials to enhance themselves, they began plotting to kill the black dragon god. At a critical moment, the Demon King intervened to save the dragon, but was ultimately defeated by a hero summoned by humans. Thus, the black dragon god was sealed by humans in this underground labyrinth. Upon finishing the story, Shoichi shed tears of regret. No wonder the black dragon harbored such hatred towards humans. He had mistakenly slain the dragon. Saria consoled Shoichi, curious why the dungeon manager hadn't appeared this time. Suddenly, a small explosion turned Shoichi's hair into an explosive mess, and a few pages of a letter floated down, revealing that the small sheep had gone off to enjoy life, leaving only a letter behind. The task wasn't to defeat the black dragon beast, but to allow it to return to the Demon King and live a peaceful life. Shoichi commented on the high difficulty of the task, deciding to head out first. Using his spatial skill, Shoichi successfully exited the labyrinth. On the way back to the city, Altria woke up, only able to apologetically mention her negative 2 million luck value, causing misfortune to anyone nearby. However, Shoichi and Saria felt completely unaffected. Back at the guild, everyone continued to treat her as a comrade, not shunning her. Moved again, Altria cried, unsure how to face this, and ran out of the guild. Shoichi, confused, heard Saria's suggestion to simply follow her. Following her advice, he found Altria in the corner of a previously visited abandoned site. Having heard so many suggestions, Shoichi somewhat wised up, approaching and hugging Altria from behind for a long time. Altria was shy, but Shoichi enjoyed the moment. Then Shoichi placed the ring of misfortune he had obtained from the chest on Altria's hand, turning her negative luck value to a positive 4 million, and even renamed it the Ring of Happiness. Altria's perilous condition was successfully resolved. Shoichi, seizing the moment, expressed his commitment to her happiness. Blushing, Altria, overwhelmed, pushed Shoichi away and ran off again. Shoichi instantly reverted to his straightforward self, sitting there looking utterly confused. He never expected that his subconscious action would capture the heart of this young girl. It seemed that securing his second harem member was now a done deal. Elsewhere, as Altria fled, she recalled the words Shoichi had said. Feeling an instant rush of affection, though she knew it was unintentional on his part, aware that he already had a beautiful girl by his side. Unsure of how to face this, she opted to avoid them for the time being. Shoichi, on the other hand, didn't dwell too deeply on it. His main focus was on finding his classmates who had also been transported to this world, as well as understanding the moral alignment between demons and heroes. Following the advice of their president, he decided to visit the library to learn more about this world. Once he started reading, he couldn't stop. He absorbed every skill from the books he read, even while simply lying down, and even mastered a skill that allowed him to create magic. Somewhat reluctantly, Shoichi did not want to turn into an invincible monster. Walking down the street, he prepared to look for something to eat, when a beast-eared girl caught his attention at her stall, selling paintings. Shoichi, liking what he saw, approached to support her business, purchasing a painting of a beautiful girl's back that no one else seemed interested in. The beast-eared girl was surprised but happy to see a customer appreciate her work. After buying the painting, Shoichi was lured by the smell of food to a nearby restaurant. His growling stomach compelled him to enter. The restaurant was quiet, with only one other customer, who happened to be the king of the country. The king, finding Shoichi interesting, invited him to sit down. The food was so delicious that Shoichi ate voraciously. After eating, he chatted with the owner and a man nearby about recent events, casually mentioning Altria. The man and the owner informed him that putting a ring on Altria's ring finger was equivalent to a proposal. Only then did Shoichi realize what he had inadvertently done, which explained why Altria had been avoiding him. Seeing that Shoichi had someone in his heart, the owner suggested that Shoichi either accept Altria or sincerely apologize to gain her forgiveness. The nearby king added that if forgiveness wasn't obtained, according to local law, Shoichi's actions could lead to execution. Hearing this, Shoichi panicked and rushed out to apologize to Altria. Meanwhile, Altria reflected on her encounters with Shoichi, feeling that he only saw her as a friend, though she had unwittingly fallen for him. As she struggled with how to interact with him, a life coach appeared, her former female employer. She quickly saw through Altria's turmoil, understood the situation, and confirmed Altria was experiencing her first love, encouraging her to pursue it if she felt so inclined. After some encouragement, Altria decided not to hide her feelings any longer, wanting Shoichi to reciprocate her affection. After leaving the restaurant, Shoichi was also conflicted, unsure if he had feelings for Altria, especially since he already had Saria and did not want to betray her. He walked back home, thinking he hadn't seen his wife all day, and decided to check on her first. Before he could enter, Altria caught up to him and kissed him, confessing her feelings. She knew about Saria, but still didn't want to leave Shoichi. Seeing the tears streaming down the young girl's face, Shoichi thought of the innocent and lovely Saria and the king's words, believing that being truly responsible for both would be the right thing to do. Just as Saria, the first wife, makes her appearance, Shoichi feels the awkwardness of being caught red-handed. He wants to explain, but Saria unexpectedly agrees on his behalf right then and there. She allows Shoichi to accept Altria, expressing her own fondness for Altria and commenting that having a sister wife might be nice. Shoichi is moved to tears by her generosity. Saria speaks frankly, her reasoning based on animal instincts. Strong males naturally attract females. After hearing this, although Altria and another person feel something is off, they don't mind anymore. Since the first wife has agreed, Shoichi can now openly maintain a harem. That day, Shoichi learns from the guild president that a horse is essential equipment for a high-ranking adventurer and a trusted partner of adventurers. Following this, the president recommends a stable to Shoichi. Deciding to get a horse, Shoichi visits the recommended stable and informs the owner of his intent. The owner, mistaking Shoichi for a participant in the Capital's Cup, a race equivalent to horse racing where participants can use weapons without any restrictions and the winner receives a grand prize, begins to enthusiastically share details about the event. However, Shoichi has no interest in competing. He just wants to buy a horse. The owner introduces a horse breed called Baka, which looks unreliable. The owner, in persuasive mode, praises the horse's power as double that of a normal horse, likening it to the legendary Red Hare. But just as he is boasting, the horse suddenly dies on the spot due to its stupidity, unable to handle even the slightest fright or forgetting to breathe if startled. After this sales pitch fails, the owner then shows Shoichi another unapproachable steed, which Shoichi immediately recognizes as nothing more than a donkey. As he comments on this, the owner, who had just walked in, gets trampled under the fiery-tempered donkey, nearly dying on the spot. While Shoichi is bewildered, he suddenly acquires the skill, all language comprehension, allowing him to understand the donkey's complaints about the owner's dirty hands, and stating that only those it approves can touch it. Impressed by the donkey's demanding nature, and seeing that Shoichi can understand him, the donkey invites him over. Fearless, Shoichi approaches to greet it, but the donkey responds with a roundhouse kick. Before Shoichi can even catch his breath, the donkey kicks again, but Shoichi catches and throws it into the air. The donkey quickly acknowledges defeat and begs Shoichi to let it down, ultimately insisting on recognizing Shoichi as its master after witnessing his strength. Later, as Shoichi and the donkey stroll through the streets, the donkey, experiencing its first outing, proves to be a glutton. To repay Shoichi, it decides to serve him for life. After enjoying various street foods, Shoichi encounters the beast-eared girl from before, who is being persuaded by a man to enter a painting competition. Lacking confidence, she is hesitant, but Shoichi, to inspire her, boasts about participating in the Capital's Cup regardless of the dangers or whether he can win. Moved by his courage, the girl considers it. The man grows more excited, mentioning that the fifth prize of the cup is a very tasty large fish, which immediately captures the food-loving donkey's attention, who then begs Shoichi to take it to the competition. Shoichi did not object. As the competition began, the crowd erupted into cheers. Shoichi's 2 harem members were also in the audience cheering for him. The host announced that the champion would spend a day touring with the Sword Saint Valkyrie, while the second prize was a photograph of the Sword Saint Valkyrie. This announcement was met with continuous cheers from the gentlemen in the crowd, but Shoichi and the donkey were petrified on the spot. They were not interested in these two prizes and decided to only compete for the fifth prize, a very tasty large fish. As the competition started, the contestants rushed forward. Only those who had been fooled into buying the baka horses remained at the start. To their surprise, the baka horses were so startled by the starting cannon that they died on the spot, disqualifying them from the race. While the other contestants were still rushing forward, Shoichi was leisurely trailing behind. The donkey mentioned how it had been looking forward to the delicious large fish and had deliberately skipped breakfast, now feeling too weak to run due to hunger. Shoichi, somewhat helplessly, could only find an evolutionary fruit to fill its stomach. Meanwhile, as the competition did not restrict contestants from attacking each other, some had already started using weapons to interfere with their rivals, and some even summoned a horde of magical beasts, frightening the host and other contestants. Seeing the following contestants petrified by the magical beasts, the host was about to declare the competition over when the donkey, powered by the evolutionary fruit, charged through with a cloud of dust and smoke, unable to stop. The excitement in the venue reignited. Everyone cheered for Shoichi and his donkey. The donkey, unable to control its newfound strength, faced a group of hellwolves that terrified the other contestants. With a high leap and a landing, the donkey sent all the B-class magical beasts flying and knocked down the A-class hellwolves with a single hoof, stunning the other contestants. Even the contestant who had summoned the magical beast dared not advance and chose to forfeit on the spot. The host was about to say the race needn't continue, but Shoichi had already run far ahead, completely forgetting their initial goal and, without any surprise, took the championship. Everyone cheered for them. The beast-eared girl also felt encouraged. When the donkey got home, it burst into tears because it had only wanted the fifth prize, the tasty fish, and accidentally became the champion. Shoichi wanted to comfort it, but after the donkey digested the evolutionary fruit, it underwent an evolution. With a familiar scene of a white light fading, another beautiful girl appeared. Shoichi's harem +1, and once again he shed tears of happiness. The first wife evolved from a gorilla, and the second wife, Altria, is a human who didn't believe the boy's ghost stories about a donkey evolving into a beautiful girl. When Saria showed her a live demonstration, it nearly dropped her jaw. Coming to terms with it, she reluctantly accepted it. The donkey-turned-beautiful girl was named Lulun. The considerate Altria immediately took her shopping for new clothes. It must be said, Shoichi's harem was quite beautiful, each with their own style. Shoichi praised Altria's taste as they exchanged compliments and thanks. Just then, two girls who were subordinates of the Sword Saint Valkyrie pushed the door open. After introducing themselves and confirming that Shoichi was the person they were looking for, they handcuffed him without giving him a chance to explain and took him away. Meanwhile, the demon race was holding a board meeting, and shockingly, the demon lord was a little girl who announced an alliance with humans, surprising all the demons present. Rather than endlessly seeking revenge, it's better to live in peace with humans so that everyone can lead a happy life. The vice president beside me couldn't sit still. He didn't trust humans. However, Leia Falzar brought them another message. A few days ago, when she summoned Lord Black Dragon, she discovered that it had been defeated by a powerful human. Lord Black Dragon even admitted defeat willingly. It has let go of its hatred and no longer harbors animosity toward humans. The vice president by the demon lord's side didn't believe it, claiming that Shoichi must have used some despicable means. Faced with the vice president's unreasonable behavior, she assured them with her own life as collateral. All the demons present expressed their agreement, leaving the vice president with no choice but to leave the scene angrily and return to his office. Unwilling to see his years of planning fall apart, he then sent someone to assassinate the human king. Meanwhile, at a training base in the capital, Shoichi's classmates who were summoned with him were still engaged in a boring competition to see who could kill the most minor monsters. The female president expressed her disinterest in such trivial games, and the few troublemaking boys had no choice but to leave. Compared to them, our Shoichi is already at the pinnacle of life. Even though Shoichi was brought in cuffs, he still wanted to know what he had done wrong. Claudia explained that he had won the right to spend a day with the Sword Saint Valkyrie. Since it was a prize, Shoichi didn't understand why he was handcuffed. Claudia then helped him unlock his hands. Upon arriving at the destination, a blue-haired girl was surrounded by a dozen girls. Shoichi was stunned. Lorna interrupted him, saying Louise was their captain, very powerful and able to resolve battles instantly. Indeed, as soon as the dozen girls with wooden swords rushed at her, Louise casually swung her sword a few times and the girls all fell down. Shoichi was stunned again. Louise then turned to introduce herself to Shoichi, who extended his hand in friendship, but Louise extended her wooden sword instead. Shoichi awkwardly grasped the wooden sword, not expecting Louise to invite him to spar. When Shoichi hesitated, Louise reassured him that the wooden sword wouldn't hurt anyone. As Louise attacked, Shoichi could only dodge continuously, avoiding more than a dozen strikes, surprising the onlookers who didn't expect him to evade the captain's fierce attacks. Louise, surprised by Shoichi's displayed strength, then brought out her best skills. At that moment, Shoichi still wanted to go home, but the system inside him couldn't bear to watch anymore and gave Shoichi a boost. Shoichi easily dodged Louise's strongest move and knocked the wooden sword from her hands. With a running start, his wooden sword pointed straight at Louise's throat. Shoichi won, leaving the crowd and even Shoichi himself shocked. Shoichi explained that he didn't know how he had won. Louise approached Shoichi seriously, wanting to take him as her master. Shoichi was taken aback for a moment. Claudia approached Shoichi and urged him to talk further. They went into a room where Claudia got straight to the point, wanting to thank him. It turned out Louise had been a swordsmanship prodigy from a young age, unable to use any magical skills but able to learn any sword technique she saw instantly. Shoichi marveled at her innate talent. The next second, Louise entered, apologizing for her abrupt actions earlier and thanking Shoichi for saving her. Shoichi didn't understand what she meant. Louise explained that her remarkable talent and early fame, coupled with an undefeated record, made her feel very lonely, almost without any close friends. Now that she had lost to Shoichi, she had a new goal: to take him as her master. Therefore, she thanked Shoichi and asked him to take her in. At that moment, the considerate system directly upgraded his guidance skill. At the critical moment, a call came from outside the door. The king has been assassinated. Louise hurriedly went alone with her people to check. She didn't want Shoichi, a foreigner, to get involved. The boy agreed outwardly, but still wanted to help Louise in action. He directly activated his newly learned World Eye and scanned the entire royal palace, finding the target. Unexpectedly, the assassin was running towards his direction. So, he decided to wait in place, like guarding for a rabbit. During this time, the World Eye scanned the information of the assassin. It turned out that the assassin was an 8-year-old little girl, who was also a slave bound by a master-servant contract. Just as Shoichi was surprised by this, the little girl appeared before him. Seeing that the boy had found out she was the assassin, the little girl immediately demonstrated her professional training, planning to send Shoichi to hell. But Shoichi was not easy to deal with. Catching darts barehanded was a piece of cake for him. Shoichi had intended to discuss life with the little girl, but his newly learned reflex defense skill triggered automatically. Shoichi reflexively threw the dart in his hand while reminding the little girl to be careful. Fortunately, the dart did not hurt the little girl, but only pinned her cloak to the wall. Shoichi then breathed a sigh of relief. However, the little girl felt humiliated, angrily broke free from the cloak nailed to the wall, and then attacked Shoichi. But Shoichi was faster than her. While dodging her attacks, he instantly knocked the little girl unconscious with a teleport. Shoichi couldn't understand why the assassin was such a young girl. Just as he was about to learn more, Louise and her subordinates arrived. Hearing that the assassin was the little girl in Shoichi's hands, everyone was incredulous. Upon receiving Shoichi's confirmation, Louise directly arranged for Lorna to interrogate her. Seeing Lorna rubbing her hands in eagerness, Shoichi wondered if it was really okay to leave it to her. Claudia's words reminded Shoichi of the scene when he first joined the guild. Although somewhat worried, he hadn't had the chance to express his concerns when he learned that the king was in a coma. Louise said that the king was struck by the little girl's dagger, which was cursed with a sleep spell, making the victim never wake up again. Seeing the sisters looking sad, Shoichi felt powerless. None of the skills he had learned included breaking curses. Led by the sisters, he went to the king's room. Unexpectedly, the king turned out to be the old man he had once met in a restaurant. Shoichi was surprised, and the old king was in agony. Seeing the curse on his hands, Shoichi felt troubled, as he currently had no way to save him. At this moment, the head of the Magic Guild arrived. He was Louise's brother, Florio. After Louise's introduction, the two men met briefly. Florio mentioned that his healing magic could only treat the symptoms, but not the cause. After that, he asked Shoichi for help. Having no other choice, Shoichi said he would do his best to help. Thus, Shoichi began treating the king. Although he had not learned any healing magic and was only pretending, he kept muttering, "Get well soon," under his breath. Unexpectedly, he said it out loud, causing the onlookers to look at him awkwardly. Realizing his mistake, just as he was about to die of embarrassment on the spot, the considerate cheat directly created a magic spell called "Get Well Soon." The king was healed just like that. Not to mention the assassin couldn't escape Shoichi. Her mission also failed. After the king woke up, he learned that Shoichi, an old acquaintance, had saved his life, and immediately wanted to reward Shoichi. Shoichi was somewhat embarrassed and wanted to decline the king's kindness. Louise, on the other hand, stated that saving the king was akin to saving the country itself. Upon hearing this, Shoichi no longer resisted. However, he made a request to become the teacher of all the young women. Indeed, he was a true gentleman. Even Louise couldn't help but remark, "He truly is the man I have my eyes on." The king, like Shoichi, was also a gentleman garnering support, sharing his dream of having bathhouses spread across the world, devoid of war and racial divisions. To achieve this dream, he had already formed an alliance with the demonic tribes, allowing everyone to meet openly and honestly. While the men and the king enjoyed their bath, their respective harems also met. Altria, worried about the boys, wondered if he would bring home 2 more wives. She couldn't suppress her jealousy, imagining him with other girls and frightening herself with these thoughts. Meanwhile, 3 of Shoichi's classmates who were close to him were ostracized, mainly due to the trio across from them who bragged about their unique bracelets, which were powerful enough to quickly learn various magics and claimed they would soon surpass him. Faced with the trio's mockery, the female president chose to ignore them and walked away, leaving the mocking trio smug. Unbeknownst to them, their so-called powerful bracelets were actually slave bracelets crafted by another country's king who intended to eliminate dissidents. Upon learning of the alliance with the demonic tribes, he claimed he was prepared and boasted that his plans were foolproof. Worried that Shoichi might be flirting around, Altria went directly to the palace to find him, pushing the blame on Saria, confusing her. As Altria feared, Shoichi had indeed flirted with Louise. Seeing the beautiful Louise rushing over and hearing her 2 sisters praising her, Altria became furious and confronted Shoichi. He quickly explained Louise's identity, and Louise herself spoke up, stating that she had taken Shoichi as her master. The girls began introducing themselves one by one, and the sight of these beautiful wives only made the blue-haired young man more envious. Shoichi's harem seemed to grow effortlessly, and even an 8-year-old loli might not escape. Through a one-way mirror, Shoichi was watching a harsh interrogation of an 8-year-old girl who was initially whipped by a woman. When the girl refused to confess, the woman slammed the table and decided to use a big bowl of pork chop rice as a new tactic. The aroma made the little girl salivate, and the woman tempted her with the pork chop just in front of her nose, a delicacy she could smell but not eat, torturing her. Shoichi couldn't stand it and burst into the room. Louise scolded and even punished Lorna, forbidding her from eating that evening. They then freed the little girl and provided her with an omelet rice, a surprisingly kind treatment for a prisoner. Louise then noticed a slave collar around the little girl's neck, implying she must have been coerced to come here to assassinate the king. Touching the collar caused her to shiver from the electric shock it emitted, revealing the collar's cruel power. Shoichi vehemently condemned whoever would commit such cruelty. Meanwhile, the neighboring country's king, the mastermind behind the assassination attempt, learned of the failure and, to avoid exposing his identity, immediately ordered his wizard to instruct the little girl to commit suicide. On the other side, the strongest knight of the neighboring country was having a crisis of conscience, lamenting his role as merely a puppet, as stated by the assassin Archer. He learned from the man that not only was there a plan to assassinate the king of this country, but also to destroy the country itself. The reason was simple: revenge. His friend had committed no crime, She was merely a flower-selling girl who was mercilessly slaughtered by the soldiers of this country, simply because she was a demon. The soldiers made no distinctions of good or evil among the demons. The man had witnessed this process from afar. Before his friend died, she reminded him to flee, but all he could do was wait for the soldiers to leave before he picked up the woman's body and let out a cry of grief and anger. The man mocked that the strongest knight was merely a puppet of the empire. Being the strongest knight, and known as the King's Sword, the man could not tolerate such words. He summoned another sword, claiming he only wanted to protect the country. The two then exchanged harsh words and began to fight. The archer's overt attacks and covert tactics injured Zakia's thigh, followed by a barrage of arrows that forced Zakia to defend. However, Zakia's title of King's Sword was not for nothing. He soon broke through the barrage of arrows. Seeing this, the archer chose to retreat, but not before leaving Zakia with a parting remark, hoping that he would no longer be a puppet the next time they met. Zakia, troubled by the term puppet, began to doubt himself and turned to training to vent his frustrations. Meanwhile, Shoichi was preparing to remove a collar from a little lowly. He remembered the scene of rescuing the king. Although he had never learned the magic to unlock slave collars, he thought he might as well imagine and create one. As a result, the appearance of the president who abolished slavery appeared behind him, and with a simple command, "Liberate!" the collar around the little loli's neck split open. The little loli was incredulous and burst into tears when Shoichi told her she was free. Seeing how Shoichi's attempts at consolation were futile, Saria hugged the little loli, who gradually calmed down and began to share her story. Her name was Olga, and her tribe had been imprisoned by a neighboring country. The elderly beastmen were executed outright, including her mother. The young beastmen were subjected to harsh training, and those who survived became assassins. Throughout her missions, she learned various killing techniques. Since being fitted with a slave collar, she had been forced to kill countless people, her hands stained with much blood. Shoichi took her hands and told her that it was not her fault, but that of the country, and that she could start anew. Olga was moved to tears again. Shoichi offered to be like a brother to her, which touched Olga, but she refused, citing herself as a traitor. If Shoichi were to shelter her, the empire behind the scenes would pursue him. However, the young man insisted he would protect her. He then got up to consult his 4 wives. Louise stated she had no objections, and the assassinated king also could not bear to execute such a young loli, so Shoichi successfully added another beast-eared loli to his harem. In the days that followed, Shoichi did not idle. Although he had cheats, his control over his power output was still unstable, so he continued to practice until he could finally manage it. Just then, Louise, with her usual special effects, approached Shoichi. Due to frequent monster activities at the border, she had to lead a team to support the front lines. Before leaving, she entrusted Shoichi with the responsibility of protecting the king. Unable to refuse her, Shoichi took on the heavy responsibility, regretting it when he realized Louise would be gone for a long time. Not seeing his 4 wives was one thing, but now he also had to guard the country, completely occupying the time he had for his harem life. In secret, both humans and demons have traitors among them. They are plotting a great war between humans and demons. A week has passed, and the boy is still learning how to control his power output, which seems to be quite effective. Then, he hears a voice inside him announcing that he has learned a new skill. Upon hearing the skill name, Infinite Hell, Shoichi feels disheartened, thinking he is becoming more like a monster. Just then, the club president and the receptionist come to visit him and introduce him to a new friend. The old man is known as the strongest magician in the kingdom. Florio is starstruck upon meeting him, but Shoichi is confused. This old man is not only known as the strongest magician, but is also the king's teacher. When the king sees him, he stands to greet him and bows, then promptly offers him a seat. The old man also holds another title. He is the chancellor of the Magic University, which is why he has come to the palace. Heroes summoned from neighboring countries have just enrolled at the Magic University and are already causing trouble. These heroes are Shoichi's classmates, and the female club president, who has a good relationship with Shoichi, often faces exclusion and criticism. This is the first time Shoichi has heard news of his classmates. While he contemplates his life, a city guard brings urgent news. A large number of monsters have appeared in the nearby forest, heading towards the capital. There are about 5,000 of them, all of leader class. The king is somewhat shocked to hear this news. but the old man advises him to remain calm. Doesn't the Valkyrie squad still guard the capital? Is there really a need to be so nervous? The king looks embarrassed. The Valkyrie squad had left a week ago to support the front lines at the border, where they are currently battling monsters. Even with Louise leading the support, the number of border monsters is still a challenge. Just as she is fighting, she also receives news of the large-scale monster attack on the capital. A classic case of drawing the tiger away from the mountain, orchestrated by demon traders to create unrest at the border that the Black Knight squad cannot quell, drawing out the capital's Valkyrie squad for support and restraining the kingdom's strongest 2 squads at the border before attacking the capital. A well-calculated strategy. Now, it all depends on how Shoichi and others defend the city. Altria states that this is the most monsters she has seen in many years. Saria, on the other hand, is different. As a gorilla who has evolved, she is somewhat belligerent and eager to try her hand. This makes Shoichi somewhat fearful and concerned. Such a beautiful wife. If she transforms into a gorilla to fight, it might be a bit of a sore sight. The third wife, Lulun, looks gloomy and startles Shoichi. She says she is afraid, leaving Shoichi embarrassed and forced to comfort her slowly. To his surprise, Lulune's fear is that if the capital falls, she will have nothing to eat, rendering Shoichi somewhat speechless. The newly adopted little girl is different. She has only one request for Shoichi, to pat her head after the battle ends. Shoichi agrees to the simple request. After all, she is still a child, and tells her to do her best. The monsters are nearing, and the battle is about to begin. The unserious club president leads the unserious members into the front line, followed closely by Seiichi's harem. Seeing all the girls take the field, Shoichi also wants to join the battle, but the old man stops him, advising him to watch the performance first. The performance does not disappoint Shoichi. The first player, the club president, flexes his muscles and effortlessly takes down Class S monsters. The second, a sadistic young lady with a whip, turns small monsters to ash with a flick of her whip, enjoying herself immensely. The third player, a chubby guy with a baby bottle, uses thrown baby bottles like hand grenades. The fourth, an exhibitionist, strips off his coat, firing millions of bullets and bombing the monsters below. The fifth player, 3 effeminate young men, simultaneously use their strongest right hands, instantly turning millennium-old monsters to ash. Seeing these bizarre tactics really impressed Shoichi, proving that they indeed are a bunch of freaks. Yet some participants were normal. For example, the Knight Commander's fighting style was quite standard, and then there was a hidden master who was originally a restaurant owner, but in reality, an assassin under the king. Shoichi was constantly surprised and amazed, especially observing the so-called strongest magician dozing off beside him, which left Shoichi feeling somewhat helpless to comment. The performance of the harem girls also didn't disappoint Shoichi. He had expected Saria to transform into her gorilla form to fight, but surprisingly, just one of her arms transformed and was enough to smash a monster. Altria, his second wife, grew more confident as the fight progressed, mastering her ice magic to an impressive degree, even waking up the dozing old man who complimented her. Lulun fought to protect gourmet food, and Olga fought for the head pats from Shoichi, having already cut down 300 monsters. Shoichi could only remark, "As expected of an assassin." After watching everyone's performance, the old man declared he had enough sleep and decided to clear the field, casually casting a couple of spells that wiped out a large group of monsters. Shoichi, watching this, exclaimed at the monster-like strength. Just when Shoichi thought he might not need to enter the fray himself, an emergency broadcast announced that an even larger group of monsters was approaching, double the original number and all high-level bosses. The group looked worried. Even the strongest old man seemed unable to handle them. As the frontline fighters felt the strain, Shoichi watched as his harem was surrounded and kept thinking of ways to help. He wished for a wide-range magic spell, but couldn't indiscriminately attack due to his own people being mixed in below. Then, as he was imagining, the statue behind him moved. Shoichi raised his hand to the sky and shouted 4 words, "Judgment of justice," but nothing happened, leaving him instantly embarrassed. Just as he was puzzled over why the spell didn't materialize, the statue moved again, swinging its sword. Light beams descended from the sky, instantly annihilating the monsters. At that moment, Seiichi heard a voice inside him confirming the spell's creation, a testament to the casual power of hacking. Seiichi was still in shock as the magic he created wiped out all the monsters below, and it was not indiscriminate. Except for a muscle-bound woman and a trembling Miss M, other allies were unharmed. When the boys learned the details of the newly created magic, they realized that Judgment of Justice had considered them a threat as well. Seiichi could only silently apologize. After destroying the monsters, he experienced a surge of level-ups and learned countless new skills, which led him to complain about not wanting to level up, not wanting to hack, and not wanting to become an invincible monster, much to the king's annoyance. Afterward, Seiichi's harem came to find him, praising him after confirming the magic was his creation, making Seiichi a bit embarrassed. Olga asked him for a reward. Watching this affectionate scene made the old man beside him somewhat envious, prompting Seiichi to pat him as well. Seeing Seiichi's embarrassment, the old man straightforwardly mentioned having witnessed Seiichi's strength and believed that Seiichi's magical prowess far surpassed his own, inviting Seiichi to teach at his magic university. Seiichi was bewildered. He still had Louise and the task of guarding the capital, so he couldn't leave to become a teacher, nor did he want to give up his harem life. The old man understood Seiichi's reluctance to accept his offer, realizing there were tasks at hand. He proposed waiting until the tasks were completed, and Louise returned before Seiichi took up the teaching role. As for his harem life, the old man considered these minor details and came up with a solution. He suggested Seiichi's first wife, Saria, could enroll as a student. The second wife, Altria, could become the director of instruction, and the third wife could teach martial arts, while the young Loli would serve as Seiichi's personal secretary. This plan quickly addressed all concerns. After hearing the old man's arrangement, Seiichi found no reason to refuse any longer. With the consent of his harem, he agreed to the proposal. The next period was spent waiting for Louise to return, after which Seiichi would be able to lead a campus life with his harem. During the waiting period, Seiichi first joined Lulun for a meal, and then went shopping and on a date with Altria. On the third day, he went out with his first wife and Olga, enjoying a happy, family-like outing. On the lawn, a boy confessed his feelings to Saria, spreading dog food in front of the children, but he was publicly stopped before he could proceed further. Later, Seiichi took his harem to watch a painting competition. A beast-eared girl, previously encouraged by a boy, painted a portrait of Seiichi winning the Capital City Cup, which won her the painting competition. This victory earned the beast-eared Loli the favor of a master painter, who invited her to further her studies at an art academy. The beast-eared girl expressed her gratitude to Seiichi. With goodbyes to the beast-eared Loli, Louise also returned from the battlefield to the capital. Seiichi, relieved to see Louise's safe return, handed over the responsibility of guarding the capital back to her and truthfully informed her of his upcoming teaching position at the Magic University. Meanwhile, the failed plans of the demonic tribe traitors, still under the devil's influence, continued their secret plots to revive the demon god to defeat humanity. At the same time, Seiichi's classmates who had come with him were still living a training life in the Magic University. On one day, the ousted female president was walking down the road and met a female student who was looking for someone. Since Seiichi had once helped her, she had been searching for him ever since she arrived, worried that something might have happened to him. However, they were unaware that Seiichi, once bullied, had now reached the pinnacle of his life and was about to head to the Magic University with his harem, preparing to reunite with them as a teacher. As the carriage moved farther away, Seiichi felt a bit reluctant, but still braced himself for the new life ahead. What sorts of strange sights would await when Seiichi and his former classmates meet? Would he continue his harem life at the university?